Wang Chung quietly called upon the system, seeking an answer. Dear host, the unknown serum could not be successfully scanned for its components, as it is not recorded in the existing database. Please use it with caution. Wang Chung took another deep breath. This vial looked no different from the others. The serum obtained from the extremely fast mutated house cat was speed-based, while that from the mutated giant dog was strength-based. Analyzing from this perspective, the serum's function was closely related to the abilities of the mutated creature from which it originated. Holding the vial of unknown serum, Wang Chung couldn't help but think of the terrifying fire-breathing ability of that giant bird. Could it be? A surprising guess formed in his mind. But to verify it, he would have to inject it himself to test it, which certainly carried risks. At this moment, Zhang Xiao was opening his backpack and taking out some items, preparing to share with Wang Chung and the others. Come on, boss, second brother Zhao, have something to eat. Their vehicle was loaded with supplies, and before getting off, Zhang Xiao had packed his backpack with food to ensure he could eat and replenish after hiding. Canned goods, chocolate, bread, biscuits, and even yogurt, everything was there. Sitting nearby, Zhao Mingjie was still chatting with Su Xinghai, but upon seeing so much food, his eyes instantly widened, and he momentarily lost his train of thought. At the same time, all the survivors in the room turned their attention towards them. It was no longer the beginning of the apocalypse. It had been over 10 days since it broke out. Although food was not yet critically scarce, obtaining it had become increasingly difficult. It seemed that the ingredients in this hot pot restaurant had already been swept clean, and most survivors here had little to offer, looking haggard and clearly having been trapped here for several days. They were all hungry and likely hadn't eaten a full meal in days, so the appearance of food right in front of them was sure to attract their attention. Zhang Xiao had barely taken out a few items from his backpack when he was already being watched. But this was inevitable. Everyone was hiding here. And Wang Chung and the others couldn't just refrain from eating. Moreover, Zhang Xiao's backpack was right there. Even if he didn't take out the items, others would still notice it. Of course, the key factor was that Wang Chung and the others had weapons and were not afraid of others harboring ill intentions. At this moment, when Zhang Xiao began to pull things out, it was actually a deliberate act. It was better to put things out in the open than to be secretly targeted. Therefore, Wang Chung immediately drew his handgun from his waist, pressed it against the ground, and scanned the other survivors with a sharp gaze. The ordinary survivors instantly fell silent, not daring to approach. They hadn't eaten well in a long time, but it hadn't reached the point where they would risk their lives for food. Their need for food and other supplies was still in a middle stage of urgency and not lacking. With this, Wang Chung successfully dispelled any unnecessary thoughts from these survivors. Rather than sneaking around to eat, being open and direct while simultaneously intimidating others was a better strategy. Anyone with ulterior motives would think twice before acting. However, there were a few exceptions in the crowd. A girl in her 20s had been staring at them, and after a moment, she whispered something to the security guard beside her. The guard then stood up and approached them. Before getting too close, he lifted his clothing to reveal a handgun at his waist. You have a lot of food. Could you share a bag of chocolate with us? Wang Chung was on high alert, but before he could respond, the guard slightly bent down and grabbed a bag of chocolate that Zhang Xiao had taken out. Strangely, the moment his fingers touched the chocolate packaging, an icy chill radiated from him, and a layer of frost formed on the packaging. He was an awakened one. Wang Cheng's eyes suddenly glinted with cold light. While Wang Chung and his group were showcasing their supplies and demonstrating their strength to intimidate the other survivors at this moment, this security guard was also demonstrating his power, trying to intimidate Wang Chung. A series of actions clearly conveyed the message. I know you have guns, and so do I. Not only do I have a gun, but I'm also an awakened one. I'm different from the survivors you can intimidate. So you better hand over that bag of chocolate. On one side, witnessing this scene, Zhao Mingjie's expression changed drastically as he whispered, Brother Wang, don't be impulsive. She is not someone we can afford to provoke. Chapter 43. The importance of supplies. Chocolate is a high-calorie food. Before the catastrophe, it was nothing special. You could find chocolate products in any supermarket. But in this disastrous era, it's worth more than regular biscuits. The pack that Zhang Xiao just took out was a whole board, weighing 100 grams. At this moment, it was being crushed in the opponent's palm, covered with a layer of chilling frost. The ice crystals seemed to spread as if they were alive. Wang Chung was locking eyes with the security personnel, coldly asking, What if I don't give it to you? Zhang Xiao and Su Xinghai's bodies tensed up instantly. They had been cooperating for a long time and clearly understood that Wang Chung was ready to act at any moment. Once he struck, they would immediately back him up. Even if this person was awakened, they wouldn't gain any advantage. I advise you not to seek trouble. The security personnel's gaze remained fixed on the handgun placed beside Wang Chung, eyes unblinking. At this moment, Zhao Mingjie whispered, Don't get into a conflict with them. That girl is the daughter of someone important, and these two are here to protect her. No wonder there were 2 armed security personnel around the girl. Moreover, these 2 were clearly professional gunmen. Wang Cheng understood the situation. Zhao Mingjie was nervous, fearing to offend the other party, but Wang Cheng and the others remained motionless. What kind of era was this? A global catastrophe, an apocalyptic tide. No matter who your father is, everything needs to be reshuffled in this time. You better think it through, Wang Cheng said, his hand just a few centimeters away from the gun. As long as he raised his hand, he could grab it. Your companion is still downstairs. If you engage with us, even if you think you can kill one or two of us, you will definitely die. If you die, what will happen to the daughter of that important figure behind you? If you're dead, what is the point of protecting her? Wang Cheng's words struck like nails into the heart of the security personnel, and the tense expression on his face began to show subtle changes. Wang Cheng wasn't he foolish. He wondered about the girl's background. One word from her made the security personnel risk conflict for chocolate. It seemed that while the girl might not be anything special, her father could be a significant figure. Thinking this way, it was easy to conclude that these two were protecting her and obeying her to please her father. But if these two lost their lives, the girl would also perish. Wouldn't everything they were doing now become meaningless? Wang Cheng didn't know if these people had taken advantage of others because of their identities and abilities. But as far as he was concerned, dream on. No matter who you are, if you want to steal my things, don't even think about it. Even if she is the daughter of a prominent figure, isn't she just stuck here waiting for someone to rescue her? At this moment, the girl, who had been silent, suddenly spoke up. I can trade with you. I have a jade bracelet from the Qing dynasty. She clearly wasn't that naive and realized the situation was not right. So she changed her offer. However, Wang Cheng frowned upon hearing this, unsure whether the girl was clever or foolish. While trying to ease the tension, she mentioned the Qing dynasty jade bracelet. Wasn't that revealing her wealth and inviting greed? Did she grow up under her father's protection, being clever but lacking experience? Or did she still rely on the strength of her two bodyguards? Wang Cheng didn't know. He wasn't interested in the bracelet and was about to refuse when suddenly an idea struck him. He changed his mind and said, "All right, let's do it." Su Xinghai and Zhang Chao exchanged surprised glances. This was not the style of Wang Cheng they knew. Just moments ago, the security personnel had boasted about their strength. And now the other party had retreated. Yet Wang Cheng had also relented. But he didn't explain anything and directly completed the transaction. 1 bar of chocolate was exchanged for a bracelet. Wang Cheng's expression remained unchanged. He wasn't particularly interested in the bracelet, but he examined it in his hands. Feeling its texture, even if it wasn't from the Qing dynasty, it was certainly not a cheap trinket. He wiped it on his clothes and tucked it into his pocket. The girl watched his actions, appearing to want to say something, but ultimately held her tongue, perhaps thinking that Wang Cheng didn't know how to preserve it properly. But in the end, she said nothing. The transaction was complete. The bracelet no longer belonged to her. The others looked on with strange expressions. This Qing dynasty jade bracelet was worth a fortune and was something they, as ordinary college students, could hardly ever access before the apocalypse. Yet now, they had traded it for a bar of chocolate. Zhang Chao was somewhat bewildered as he opened his backpack and saw a few more bars of the same chocolate inside, wondering to himself, is this food really so valuable? Zhao Mingjie also looked stunned, swallowing hard as his gaze shifted between the people around him, unsure of what to say. The girl and her 2 bodyguards had previously been a source of reliance for many survivors here and were not people to be offended. They had always been quite assertive. But now, in front of Wang Cheng, they had become compliant, following the rules and trading instead of resorting to coercion. This was the apocalypse. This was the difference between those with power and those without. As Zhao Mingjie thought about this, he felt inexplicably dejected and dim. But he quickly cheered up when Su Xinghai handed him a piece of bread. Although he lacked strength, he at least knew people who were powerful. Zhao Mingjie felt immensely grateful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Su Xinghai felt a bit ashamed. He had originally intended to give Zhao Mingjie a piece of bread and a pack of sausage, but he was also taken aback by the recent exchange. Realizing that the lavish meals he enjoyed daily were not something everyone could afford. The preciousness of resources outside was rising in value every day. Therefore, Su Xinghai ultimately only offered him a piece of bread. Despite this, Zhao Mingjie was deeply moved, opening the bread and devouring it with great appetite. He mentioned that he hadn't really eaten anything decent for 2 days, having only drunk a little water and eaten a few wilted vegetable leaves. This was also reflected in the daughter of the prominent figure sitting across from him. The girl was clearly a well-bred young lady, accustomed to a life without worries about food. Once she got her hands on the chocolate, she also displayed a bit of ravenousness. But to the surprise of Wang Cheng and the others, she divided the chocolate into 3 pieces, sharing one with each of her 2 bodyguards. The security personnel was equally surprised and touched, simply saying, "Thank you, miss." Wang Cheng began to eat vigorously as well. They had been running from monsters all day, barely having anything to eat. After injecting the serum, his physical abilities had increased, but he felt a greater consumption of energy and was more easily hungry. At this moment, he ate without restraint, but when he turned his head, he noticed Su Xinghai and Zhang Chao